Hello everyone, and thank you for joining today's webinar about best practice sponsorship presented by Abby Clemens. My name is Olivier Menon and I am the Events and Communications Officer at Connecting and TechSoup New Zealand. We'll start with a bit of housekeeping. If you have any questions during the webinar, please type them in the question box on your webinar panel and we'll answer them at the end of the webinar. We have quite a large number of participants today, which is very good to see, but it means that we may not be able to answer all your questions during the webinar. We'll try our best, but if your question is not answered, Abby will be able to answer to them after the webinar via email. If you have any technical issue, please also type it in a question box and I will do my best to help you with it. This webinar is being recorded and the link to the recording and a copy of the slides will be sent to you all shortly and you'll be able to access them at any time on our website. If you are interested in learning more about best practice sponsorship, Abby will be running an in-depth full webinar course with us in June and you can find details for that on our website as well. So please let me quickly introduce Abby to you now because I know she's excited to get started on today's webinar. Abby has been working specifically with for-purpose organizations for nearly 10 years. She began her journey after being employed in a national peak body and raising nearly half their annual budget in sponsorship. Through this process, she knew that every cause needs to be able to generate great success with sponsors, and so she created Infinity Sponsorship. Since then, she's dedicated herself to creating simple and easy to implement solutions to help charities and organizations like yours to continue their vital work in the community. She has recently created the world's first online sponsorship university for not-for-profits and charities, which I encourage you to check out later. And I know she's excited to bring innovative and affordable sponsorship education to the sector. So without further ado, I'll hand over to Abby so she can lead you through the pathway to best practice sponsorship. It's all yours, Abby.
Hi Olivier, and thank you so much. Hi everyone, I am so excited to be with you this morning. I hope you all have a hot cup of tea or coffee or a full glass of water ready to go. We're going to set a bit of a cracking pace through today's webinar. I always get a little bit nervous before I present a webinar. I wish I could see all of your gorgeous faces. Always helps me kind of connect a bit more easily when I'm looking out at a sea of faces. So we are going to be looking at a top-down approach to best practice sponsorship for your organisation today, and I'm really excited because over the last 10 years working with for purpose and for passion and for impact organisations like you, I have kind of created a pathway for success, or what I call a best practice pathway. And you know, I don't know about you, but I've done a lot of training over the years, and when I was first starting out as a fundraiser and a sponsorship seeker, there was really nothing that was able to take me step by step by step through a process that allowed me to begin where I needed to begin and work through a process that allowed me to really be incredibly successful with sponsors. So I ended up developing this pathway. So we're going to be looking at this pathway just really quickly today because, as Olivier said, I am actually going to be running a 4-part series in June. They're going to be a week apart, and we are going to be diving into each of these 4 separate areas. So you can see on the macro level there, we have plan, find, and connect, and keep. So let's dive into those a little bit more, in a little bit more information. So first of all, you know, many not-for-profits and charity organisations think that starting a sponsorship process starts with creating a sponsorship proposal and sending it out to a list of prospects. As you'll see, as we start to work through this process, that's about halfway through the actual process. So starting with creating a culture of commercial acceptance, and that's really going to be the big thing today that I'm going to be looking at. It's really about getting your board on board. You know, you don't want a board that are with you because they, you know, it looks good on their resumes. You need a board that is active, that is encouraging, that sees you as the star quarterback for their organisation if you are the fundraiser. And this is really where every successful sponsorship strategy will be able to soar to great heights if you make sure that you have really created a sponsorship friendly organisation. So we will be going into a little bit more detail about that today in today's webinar. Number two, in this planning phase. So this planning phase really is kind of, should be the easiest in some ways, because this is kind of what I call the navel gazing stage. You haven't opened the doors to the commercial sector yet, looking for potential partners. You are still at that internal planning. So creating a sponsorship policy is a really crucial part of that process. It's both an internal and external document. So if you have a potential partner that actually approaches you, you can be handing over a sponsorship policy that you've created that really shows them how you define sponsorship, how you use sponsorship funds within your organisation, how you view your corporate partners, what kind of leverage you give them access to, you know, how you view intellectual property, a whole bunch of stuff that really helps to create a lovely framework for you know, building your sponsorship strategy. Number three in the planning stage is incredibly important. There's no point embarking on a sponsorship policy, a sponsorship strategy, if you don't actually understand what the corporate sector is looking for, or more importantly, what the sponsors who would be interested in your organisations are wanting. And we are going to be looking at that as well in a little bit more detail today, but suffice it to say that for the right partner, your community of followers are going to be their target market. So you need to be diving deeply into the demographics of your, you know, your members, your supporters, your clients, your customers, your community of followers, whatever it is, whatever that term is that you use to define those people who are with your organisation, they all have some commonalities. They all have a demographic. They all have needs that they are looking to fill and solutions that they are looking for, products that they're buying. And so the right sponsor is going to be somebody who kind of fills those needs. Okay, the final part of the planning process is working out what you have to offer. And this is often quite a big stumbling block for a lot of charities and associations, because I think, well, what do we possibly have that a sponsor could be interested in? And, you know, the easiest way to start this process is to really take stock and do a stock take really of your communication channels, all of the ways that you are using to communicate and connect with your community of followers. So you might have a newsletter, you might have an email bulletin, you might have really active social media platforms and communities. You might do live events. You might do evening workshops. There might be a whole bunch of things that you're currently doing that bring your community of followers together. And that is a really great starting place for starting to put together a bit of an idea, a bit of an asset list, if you like, of what you could offer leverage to a sponsor. Okay, so if we're moving on now to the find phase, we're looking at targeting the right sponsor. Who are those organisations out there that are going to be interested in you? You know, what research do you need to do to really find out whether there's a fit? It is not simply enough to know that you need funding and you need money. You really need to understand what products and services and what kind of people companies are targeting in order to find that alignment. We're starting to get into the relationship building phase, and so this, you know, has that dreaded term cold calling. I've actually written a free ebook on that, which I'll be giving you all access to later. But you know, I've been doing a lot of speaking at conferences and webinars over the years, and I deal with a lot of not-for-profits, and this has to be one of the biggest fears in the for-purpose sector. Is picking up that phone and having to build a relationship with somebody that you don't yet know. So building the relationship with a potential partner is extremely important. And you may notice we haven't yet got to sending out the proposal. So we are needing to build those relationships, build rapport. This includes, finding the right person. LinkedIn is a fabulous resource for that. But as companies get more and more savvy, a lot of them are hiding their senior executives and their marketing managers on their websites, so they can be really quite difficult to find. So there are strategies to get to that right person. So that's all part of the relationship building phase. And as I said, we're going to be covering this in this 4-part series coming up in June. Valuing your proposition, probably one of the biggest questions I get asked: how do we know what to charge a sponsor for who we are, for what access we can give them? And I don't have a magic wand, and anybody who tells you that they do have a magic wand is lying, because there is no way to create a concrete value. At the end of the day, you could have an asset list that is valued by some external marketing organisation, and they might determine that your database is worth $250,000 a year. But if the market won't bear that cost, if companies won't pay that amount, then it really is irrelevant, some of those figures that we place on the assets that we can offer a potential sponsor. I have created a couple of formula, though, that can be used to get you much nearer to the value of what you should be asking for. And I guess I developed this because many charities and organisations were just using sponsorship to cover their costs. And often, if you run your own events, you'll find that there are extraneous costs that you hadn't really built into the fact, and then you end up undervaluing yourself, and you end up spending more on a sponsor than they've actually invested with you. So this is a really important part of the process, valuing your proposition. And here we are, halfway through the process, and we are now creating the ideal proposal. And I can tell you, I have probably made more mistakes in the sponsorship arena than all of you combined, all 200 of you out there. So, I used to be one of the ones who would create a generic proposal, and I'd develop a list of hot prospects, and I'd send out the proposal, and then I would spend my months following up on the phone, calling, and I can tell you that I just have so much more success now by just taking that time to get my internal ducks in a row and building relationships with companies. You can find so much information out by just picking up the phone. And we're going to be looking at some of those reasons that sponsors say no, and some of the reasons that sponsors are, sponsor in the first place. How many times can I say sponsor in one sentence, I ask you? So as I said, I'm going to be setting a cracking pace through this webinar, so stick with me. You will all get these slides sent to you. I've got all of my contact details at the end of the webinar, so you can ask me anything you like. So let's press on. So we're now moving into the connecting phase. Okay, so we are really starting to get down to the nitty-gritty now. We are following up to our proposal. We are starting to head into meetings with sponsors where we are negotiating, the benefits that they want and the price they're willing to pay. This is all part of it. So, there's a whole segment on, the games that people play in sponsorship meetings and how to navigate your needs versus their needs to get a successful outcome. Securing the partnership is such a big part of the process. I've dealt with so many organisations over the years who just have an email from a company, confirming a sponsorship, or they've done a handshake deal to say that they're moving forward in partnership together. You need a contract. There is absolutely no two ways about it. And if for no other reason than the value and the importance that corporates place on the use of their logo. You can get yourself really up the creek without a paddle very, very easily by misrepresenting a corporate and somehow distorting their logo or not using it in the correct way. So this is as much a butt covering exercise for you as it is for a sponsor. Working collaboratively with sponsors, clearly this is an important part of the process, but you know, what we're really wanting when we're talking about these partnerships with companies is you both singing from the rooftops. You know, it's not about you as a for-purpose organisation doing everything away, doing everything, bending over backwards to make sure sponsors are happy. And I think that this is a really common misperception when it comes to sponsorship. We're a charity, we're really grateful, we've got a sponsor on board, now we just have to do everything we can to make sure they stay with us. At the end of the day, you want to be leveraging their networks too. This is as much about, you know, creating a joint media release to announce the partnership. They're going to have access to networks that, you know, you wouldn't be able to afford in a million years to get access to. So making sure that they understand that the expectation is that this is not a donation, and this is going to be something we're talking about today, but this is a reciprocal relationship. You know, it works for us and it works for you. So really working collaboratively with sponsors. You know, one of the things that when I was coming up with this pathway and tweaking it and amending it was I was noticing that nobody is talking about handling difficult situations. It's often something that people kind of like to not really talk too much about, just deal with them if they happen, but there's no real processes and procedures around what happens if a challenging situation arises. And as to what those challenging situations are, I mean, it could, you know, how long's a piece of string? It could be that you've got people in the company who are really trying to micromanage the sponsorship and everything that you're doing. There could be a culture clash between the organisations. You might have a personality clash. You may have forgotten to put a banner where it was supposed to be in an event. You know, there's a myriad things that could happen, but having some governance and framework around how you handle difficult situations internally, being proactive with taking ownership is a really, really important part of the connecting and building those relationships phase. So here we go, we're moving on to the keeping phase now, and measuring and maintaining the relationship is really a very, very important part of it. And you know, I read some research recently which I was just so gobsmacked, because global research has recently come out with IEG, it's sponsorship.com. If you haven't read it, you can go and read the full report there. Is that many companies are now starting to turn to their sponsorship partners, that's you, looking for them to measure their return on investment for them, because they don't have any processes and they don't understand how to measure the success of a relationship. So, you know, in this course that I'm going to be running in June, we are going to be looking at that a lot more deeply about what's your job around measuring a relationship and what's their job. How much can you actually measure for them? Some of the processes and reporting that you can put in place that greatly not only enhance the sponsorship for your sponsor, but just, you know, put you in the top 1% of people that are sponsorship partners, because you are really being proactive in your communications. Okay, preparing for renewals. You know, it's not okay just to get to the end of the event or end of the year and then just send out an invoice and go, so we think things went pretty well, we're hoping we can just carry on. You know, at a certain point in the relationship, you are going to have to start preparing for renewals. You know, this includes making sure that you've been taking notes all the way through when you're working collaboratively with sponsors, when you're handling difficult situations, when you're doing those measurement reports, that you are starting to collate all of that information, looking at what went right, what didn't go so well, what areas could you improve on, and what kind of meetings do they look like when you're starting to prepare for the renewals process? Another area I found that people were just really silent on was exiting a sponsorship. It's just human nature when you're in a relationship with someone that sometimes things aren't going to go well. It may go way beyond handling a difficult situation and get to the point where you decide you don't love them, they decide they don't love you. It's a mutual fallout, but there comes a point sometimes where you need to manage an exit. And how do you do that? Because sponsors speak with sponsors. If you don't know that, I really want you to write that down. Sponsors speak with sponsors. So if you've got somebody corporate logo on your website this year, and they're not on your website next year, and you go out to new sponsors, bet your bottom dollar that somebody will say, well, what happened to that sponsor that you had on last year? I noticed they're not with you anymore. So, there's a process around managing how to, exit a sponsorship professionally. And finally, renewing the sponsorship. That's the point we all want to get to, renewing that sponsorship, making sure it just rolls over seamlessly to the next year, invoices are paid, lessons are learnt, that you're being proactive, that if this was your first sponsorship, that you're starting to lean on them a little bit more now for, well, what could you bring to the table? What forums could you introduce us to? How can we increase the leverage that we're getting from this sponsorship rather than it just being all about them as a sponsor? So there we have it, my friends, the pathway for success, the best practice pathway to sponsorship. So I'm sorry that was such a big mouthful, but I really did want to walk you through it because, if you've been just struggling to get your sponsorship strategy off the ground or struggling to even create a sponsorship strategy, there absolutely is a step-by-step process like this that can help you. So let's move on now to really looking at what a top-down approach means. So it's all about starting with the end in mind. And what is the end in mind? Well, it's obviously long-term happy partnerships that are yielding good returns for you, but it's actually more than that. It's what I like to call a win-win-win situation. And if you're going to write anything down today, that's another thing, a win-win-win. Obviously, you have to win as a result of any successful sponsorship. You need, financial investment or in-kind sponsorship that is actually taking something off the bottom line. So if you're getting in-kind sponsorship, that's all well and good, but make sure that it's actually defraying some of the costs that you would have otherwise had to spend in servicing a sponsor or running an event of some kind. So you absolutely need to win. The sponsor absolutely needs to win. There needs to be a great alignment. There needs to be leveraging opportunities. There needs to be an opportunity for them to connect with your community of followers who are also their target market. But the biggest winners in all of this, and if you keep this at the front of your mind every time you are dealing with a sponsor or approaching a sponsor, you will never go wrong. Your biggest winner has to be your community of followers. Because the minute they feel spammed, the minute they feel that you've sold out, the minute they feel like that this sponsor or this company just isn't adding value to their alignment with your organisation, everybody loses. Because your community of followers, your members, your supporters, they aren't mandated to be with you. They are with you because they trust you. They love the advocacy you give them. You provide them a unified, political voice, the services, the benefits, whatever it is. The minute they don't feel like they're winning, everybody loses out. So that is starting with the end in mind. But, without a level of commercial acceptance, or as I often say, a level of sponsorship friendliness within the organisation, no sponsorship strategy is going to be able to get off the ground. So it's really making sure that at the top levels of your organisation, your board, your CEO and your team, that people understand that there needs to be a level of business acumen, that they need to understand the reciprocal nature of sponsorship. Sponsorship is not a donation. We are going to absolutely be covering that. It is a commitment to an ongoing relationship, and it is an understanding that a company is coming on board because your community of followers is also their target market, and they are going to want to try and promote their business to that target market. So if there is a level of commercial acceptance on board, there will always be a much, much greater chance at success. So I will not belabor the point that you are a not-for-profit. We all know that your label is a not-for-profit, and we all know what that means. So I'm not going to belabor that point, but it's so vital that you see yourself as a business. You are a business. You are in the business of service delivery. You are delivering a set of services to a community of followers who absolutely love who you are. Just because you are choosing to spend your profits differently is really no different. And I would actually, I would almost say that the word not-for-profit has become this kind of cancerous mindset in the sector, that where organisations feel they need to be poor. They feel they need to struggle on some level. And I actually invite you to consider that it's the total opposite of that, because your community of followers is depending on you. So the more services you can provide, the more programs you can run, the more profits you can funnel back into growing your organisation, which allows them to enjoy increased service and social agitation, inclusion, advocacy, all of that kind of stuff, the better, the better it is for you. So I don't know if you've ever heard of the charity overhead myth. A lot of people I speak to absolutely have, but if you haven't, I'm not going to go into it too much now, but it's really about this idea that people who are donating to charity want to see that their money is going right to the people that need it. And so if you are, if you are in the if you look after homeless people or children with cancer, that dollar that they spend with you is absolutely going to that homeless person and easing their struggles in life. It's such a myth, though, because without having a fantastic CEO and competent staff and a brilliant social media communication strategy and an office to rent and electricity to turn your lights on, you cease to exist. So it's such a myth, and I think there is a massive role that charities have to educate the community about the work that you do, and how by attracting talented staff and engaging in more social media allows you to actually help more people. And so if you haven't already checked out that TED Talk in that bottom point there by Dan Pallotta, please do. It's absolutely fabulous, and I do provide a link to it towards the end of this seminar. The way we think about charity is dead wrong. So Dan Pallotta, I really encourage you to watch that one. So every successful strategy I have been fortunate enough to implement for an organisation or to witness always starts from the top of the organisation, so the board and the top tiers of management, and flows downwards and outwards from the organisation. When the sponsorship strategy starts solely with the fundraiser, and that fundraiser is then just trying to push it out to every area of the organisation, it can be a lot harder and a slower process. I'm not saying that it can't be successful, but you really need to pave the way for internal support before you seek sponsorship, because once you start, you can't go back. Once you send out that proposal, you can't say to them, oh, I'm so sorry I made a mistake, or I'm so sorry, Mr. Coles, that I accidentally had Woolworths written in the proposal. My find and replace didn't work. Can I send you another one? Once you've gone out and you've created that first impression, the cold hard truth, and it's pretty harsh, but you can't go back. You've already created an impression. And, you know, a lot of people forget that it takes a whole organisation to deliver on a sponsorship strategy. You know, sponsors are going to want to meet your board. They are absolutely going to want to interact with your executive officer. You know, whether you have somebody looking after your newsletter, you might have an IT person doing your web stuff, your IT stuff. You might be lucky enough to have a social media and comms manager. All of these people are going to have to pull together, including you as a fundraiser, to deliver on the promises that you make to sponsors. So it's really important that we start from the top down and we start having those discussions at the top level. And at the end of the webinar, I'm going to be giving you access to a policy template, a board commitment to corporate sponsorship board policy, which will be really, really helpful to generate discussions. Whether you know it or not, actually it can take 9 to 12 months to get your first sponsor. And I think that that often shocks people. It certainly shocks a lot of boards that I speak to, because often they'll have a board meeting, they'll go, you know what, we need sponsors, that's what we need. So we'll get somebody in the organisation, often it's the CEO themselves, to do a sponsorship strategy, and we'll revisit again in a month's time and we'll see how you're going. So people still think that sponsorship is a really quick fix. And it's absolutely not. And I'm going to be talking about why that is in just a little while. So, you know, take the time to educate your board, your CEO and the team about the journey ahead, and make sure that you are prepared to commit to a long-term strategy. You may already be experiencing some resistance at the board level about, you know, looking into sponsorship. I hope that you have a really engaged board that are forward-thinking, that are excited about the organisation that you are and all of the things you have to offer. But it can be quite a common thing that, you know, there's resistance at that board level. It can be oh, we tried that once and it didn't work, or we had a sponsor once and they wanted everything for nothing, or sponsors always want to take over, or all sponsors want are our database. You know, all of those objections are actually so easily overcome by communication. And so, as I said, this board policy at the end is really going to help you kind of address any resistance issues that are within your organisation and help foster trust with your board about the way forward. I'm just trying to think of whether I should speak about it here or in a little while. No, I'm going to speak to it on the next slide. I'm going to move along. So sponsorship versus philanthropy. I would have to say that this is the #1 reason that many organisations in the sector are unsuccessful with sponsorship, is because they mistake sponsorship with donations, and they actually treat sponsors like donors. So, you know, it can just be a complete waste of time for a lot of companies who invest money thinking that they are going to be getting access to some kind of target market, when really a lot of charities take the money and then they are thrilled to have that investment and then go back to, you know, their mission, really, to try and forward their mission. So sponsorship and philanthropy are totally different things. We've already looked a little bit at that. And as I was saying, you want an active and involved board, but you don't want a board that brings their commercial interests to the boardroom. Okay, so one of the things with philanthropy is you really want a philanthropic board. You really want a board who is prepared to mine their networks, to go out to people in their networks and ask them to donate, to sell tickets to your events, to be on board with trying to drum up awareness of who you are and funnel people through to giving, whether it's of their time or their money. It's actually the opposite when it comes to sponsorship. So as you all know, the board's job is to really plot the course for your charity or association. And by not being involved in that day-to-day business, they're able to actually focus on setting that strategy and developing effective policies and just ensuring that everything runs smoothly and continues to serve your supporters. But the minute you bring your board members on as sponsors, all of that starts to get really muddy and it becomes a real conflict of interest, because the minute a board member comes to a board meeting wearing their commercial hat, suddenly you start to lose momentum for the organisation. And I've mediated several meetings that have really gotten quite heated, where board meetings become this argument really around, well, how come that corporate sponsor got that placement of banner and I'm paying just as much and I didn't see my banner anywhere? And it suddenly becomes a really mucky situation. So this is one of the things that this policy I'm going to give you at the end is going to help resolve. But there is one walk away thing that I want you to take away today. It's so important, and it's kind of the reason that I exist doing what I do in the charity sector. Is I really hope that from this moment on you know to see yourself as a charity in need of handout. That you really, when you start to dive down into the way sponsorship works, that you start to see yourself as a valuable marketing partner to the right sponsor. So I'm just going to say that again. I don't want you to see yourself as a charity just in need of handouts. Philanthropy and government grants and corporate social responsibility and all of that stuff, they are so fantastic, and I think the key to sustainability in the sector and for your organisation is absolutely a diverse funding stream. But when it comes to sponsorship, you really need to see that you are a valuable marketing partner to the right sponsor. And when you start seeing yourself in that light, there's something that seems to switch for fundraisers. They start to have more confidence in their approach to companies. They start to really hone in on what companies are the right ones for us, because we are a valuable gatekeeper. We are a gatekeeper to a community of followers that a company is looking to access, because that community of followers is also their target market. Now, social media and television and advertising, those companies can kind of nibble around the edges, if you like, of that community of followers, but you are the gatekeeper. You are the ones that can give them direct access. You are the ones who can really wrap your arm around their shoulder and invite them to sit at the table with your family and meet your family, of course, being your community of followers. So there's a couple of rules that kind of have to go with that when you start to see yourself as a valuable marketing partner, and you have a job educating the corporate sector. You want to show them, just like any newbie to your family, how to behave with your family, how to communicate with them. The best way that your community is going to be most receptive to their marketing messages. So there really is, there really needs to be a mindset shift from the top down when we're looking at ourselves as charities, because you are actually in a really, really powerful position. Just going to check the time. Okay, we're going well. Okay, so we've been looking at the board, which is great. I just want to focus on something for a minute. I went to a conference last year and I met a gorgeous woman called Kate Russell from New Zealand. She's the CEO of the Canterbury Medical Research Foundation, and she gave this talk called What Every CEO Needs to Know About Fundraising. And I have, with permission, stolen some of her stuff because it was absolutely fantastic. And it was just, I was kind of bouncing up and down in my seat while I was listening to this, because I thought, yes, this is exactly right. So for any CEOs that are out there listening to me today, and of course any fundraisers and board members as well, it's really important to know that fundraising is hard work. Fundraising is hard work, and our fundraisers need support. We get a lot of no's, and it can be extremely demoralizing. Fundraising is also a really specialized skill. You know, I've noticed that the best fundraisers have a lot of technical expertise when it comes to fundraising. They are one of the few people in your organization that actually has a helicopter view. You know, when you're talking about program managers and you know, accounts people and all of that kind of stuff, they can be quite siloed. Of course, they go very deeply with their expertise, but apart from the CEO, really it's only the fundraiser in an organization that will have that beautiful helicopter view of your organization. You know, more often than not, the best fundraisers are very conscientious and well organized. We're all people, so we love people, and we're often willing to support and nurture other team members. There's often a willingness to take risks as well, because, you know, nothing ventured, nothing gained. You'll find that the best fundraisers don't have a fear about picking up a phone and making a cold call. They're often honest about their shortcomings. You know, it's really important that as a fundraiser you know when to down tools and seek balance. They have a fantastic ability to learn everything that there is to know about an organisation, rather than, as I said before, dive deeply into some of just, you know, a couple of programs. And they have a really unique gift of being able to promote the organisation holistically. And as a sponsorship seeker and as a fundraiser, that's something that you absolutely need to do. You need to be able to speak to the whole organisation. So, you know, it's important too that people know that it takes money to make money. And if you're going to if you're going to pay peanuts, you're going to get monkeys. Paying and remunerating your fundraisers, because they have quite a stressful job and they have a very big scope that they have to deal with. It's an important thing to get real about. Also, I guess understanding that everyone's an ambassador. You know, are your staff happy? You know, whether they're standing in the line at Woolies on the weekend and somebody strikes up a conversation and asks them where they work. It's good that people are speaking about your organisation with good regard. So everybody in your organisation is an ambassador. Sponsors will absolutely want to see the CEO. There is no doubt about it. The higher up you go in a corporate organisation, they are more likely to want to match title for title. So managing director to CEO, they're going to want to meet your board. Involving your fundraisers in strategic planning is absolutely vital. You know, this helicopter view of the organisation allows them really to, it's not just the helicopter view, it's the fact that as a fundraiser, you're out there in corporate land, you're out there speaking to donors, you're out there speaking to sponsors, you're also getting intel externally about how your organisation is viewed, and this is a really important part of the process. And you know, one thing I've noticed that can be very successful is having a board member that's actually experienced in and responsible for fundraising. It really facilitates great communication and support between the board and the team. All right, so we're going to quickly scoot through a couple of things now of why companies sponsor. You may already know this, and if you do, hopefully it'll just be a little refresher. But, you know, I just kind of hark back to that sponsorship versus philanthropy thing. Sponsorship money, by and large, comes out of a company's marketing budget. There is no sponsorship bucket. So the marketing budget is used then to promote an organisation, to grow an organisation, or a company should I say, and to educate people about their products and services with the ultimate intention of influencing these people to buy. So sponsorship is used by these companies as a vehicle to grow their business. That's what you know, they use the marketing budget for, and that's what sponsorship is for. We use it to grow our businesses by investing in organisations like you who have a target market that I'm trying to sell to. So they can see, in an ideal world, that they can grow their business by aligning with you. And this is where you start to see that you become a really valuable marketing partner to the right company. So if you're going to continue to treat sponsorship as a donation, you're really not going to be successful at getting to the heights and the kind of investment that you could command with the companies and brands that are aligned strongly with who you are. So there are a couple of reasons that sponsors say no. You know, I've gleaned this information, you know, by speaking with countless and countless companies over the years. Bad timing is often, you know, the number one, I would say. Bad timing. You miss their budgeting cycle. So this comes back to the point that I was trying to make before around addressing expectations, that sponsorship can take your first sponsor can take, you know, up to 9 to 12 months to come in. You absolutely could get one on sooner. I'm not saying for everybody it is that, but to have those expectations, it's always better to under-promise and over-deliver. So you might want to write this down. About 50 of Aussie companies run their marketing calendar on a calendar year, so January through to December. So that's about 50%. So January through to December. So that means that they are going to be looking to assess marketing opportunities and sponsorship opportunities from kind of August to November in the previous year. Okay, so then you've got roughly the other 50% of Aussie companies that are running their marketing budget on a financial year, so 1st of July through to the 31st of June. That means they are going to be looking to find opportunities to build into their marketing budget from about February to May. Now, that will vary. Sometimes you'll deal with organisations who are like, well, we're planning 3 years out at the moment. You think, wow, really 3 years? But that's just to give you an idea. So if you come up with a list of, say, 20 hot prospects that you think are real crackers, and you've got a really good, I don't mean crackers as in mad, I mean really crackerjack, like they're really top-notch alignments, you can immediately wipe 50% of them off, and you're going to have to approach them in, you know, say 6 to 9 months. So often when you know, you're addressing these expectations with boards, that's a really key piece of information to be talking with your board and your CEO about, because you are this is a long-term strategy. So you're going to be able to deal with about 50% of these organisations now, and you're going to have to put 50% into your Outlook calendar for a time down the track. But often you won't know until you actually pick up that phone and make a cold call. So they don't publicise it on their website. People aren't necessarily going to respond to your cold generic proposal that you've sent out saying, great proposal, but you know, we won't be able to look at this for another 6 months. It just will obviously slide across their desk and fall into the bin on the other side because the timing was wrong. So again, no clear alignment between what your organisation does and what the company sells. So again, that comes down to, are your community of followers their target market? Sending out a cold proposal without getting to know them first. One of the biggest bugbears, in fact there's 2 bugbears that I've started interviewing a range of companies, and I'm creating a podcast series, and 2 of the biggest things are sending a cold proposal without getting to know them, and I'll get to the next one on the next slide. Another one, not giving them enough lead time. Often, and I know as a sponsorship consultant, I'll get a call, I'd probably get 3 a week, saying, hi, I'm from XYZ charity, we're running an event in 3 months. I'm wondering if you could help us get sponsors. I mean, now you know what the marketing budget and the cycle is for companies. You can start to see that you need to be pushing your planning out. And I would say the ideal amount of time when you're looking for sponsorship is about 15 months. So giving yourself 15 months lead time is going to be a comfortable amount of lead time. So no clear opportunities for a company or brand to participate, and this can easily happen when you start mistaking sponsorship for donations. Offering the same gold, silver and bronze opportunities, that is bugbear number 2. So that was creative about a decade ago. You know, and whether you call it platinum, titanium and gold, or gold, silver, bronze, or lead, tin and paper, whatever it is, at the end of the day, you are really robbing yourself of investment, because sponsors will just look across at the different levels. They will cherry pick the opportunities they want, and then they will offer you the lowest amount of money possible. Okay, I'm going to keep going because we've only got a couple of pages left to go. But so no way to measure the partnership. They don't know how to leverage it. No opportunity for return on investment, untried opportunities, techniques or benefits. You know, this can be difficult if you're trying to get an inaugural event up and running, for instance, or an inaugural program, and you don't have any figures on, you know, how many people attended last year or how many people, you know, that kind of stuff. And the next one is unmaintained relationships. And again, that harks back to that sponsorship versus philanthropy, where you treat them like donors, you take their money, and then you use that money to just go and fulfill your mission. Okay, I've got some gifts for you guys, and I really just want to run through these. You are absolutely going to be getting a copy of this with links on it, but I've created, I think Olivier mentioned at the beginning of the webinar, I've created the world's first sponsorship university for for-purpose organisations, and I've created a program called the Sponsorship Foundations Program. It actually is an online course that takes you through all of those 16 steps that we went through at the beginning, but I've opened up lesson 1 of that, creating a culture of commercial acceptance, for free. If there's a webinar there, an introductory video, it goes into a lot more depth than we were able to cover today. You can actually download a real-life example of that board sponsorship policy, and then you can download your own free template. There is the link there to get you started, so sponsorship-university.com/courses/lesson-1. So that is the link to get you started on that free lesson 1, where you can listen to that webinar for free and download the real-life example policy and the template. Moving on, I hope everyone's been able to copy that down in time. And here we go. I can't help myself. I'm just a giver. Just a giver. I've written 3 free ebooks. You can just go to infinitysponsorship.com.au to access the first 2. Okay, there's a book all about 8 easy steps to turn cold calls into hot prospects. Every one of these books has got templates and checklists and scripts and all sorts of stuff. And then if you go to the sponsorshipuniversity.com website, you can download the 5 myths of non-profit sponsorship. And I've also created a survey for charity organisations. It really is like a sponsorship health check. It goes through about 30 questions, and it takes you through the health of your organisation's sponsorship strategy, what the areas are that you need to concentrate on, what you're already doing well. I hope everyone's managed to get those down. So now we can open up to questions. What do we got, 30 seconds, Olivier? I tried to go as fast as I could.
Oh, we can have a couple of minutes if you don't mind staying back.
Totally fine. In fact, I always like to have a 3-day webinar, but you know, connecting up just won't let me. I don't understand why. We could all have coffee and fruit and talk about stuff. So go for it. Read them all out. Please do copy down all my contact details there as well. I'm very, very happy to receive any questions that I didn't get to today.
Okay, first question. We've got Brad who asks you, what are your thoughts on the use of the word partner versus the use of the word sponsor? Because he seems to get a good reaction when he speaks about partners or partnerships.
Yes, absolutely. Look, I absolutely agree. Companies want to be referred to as partners. And I think that they're, you know, through perhaps years of mishandling the sponsorship relationship, sponsors or companies feel like the word sponsor sounds like it's some kind of private funding model, whereas corporate partner feels like they're a partner in your business strategy. They feel like there is, they want to connect. You know, sponsorship is so much more than advertising. It is about creating opportunities for connection. So partner is a fantastic term. I kind of oscillate between the two, only because I use it so much. So definitely go with partner.
Okay, we've got Michael who asks you, what is the best way to build a sponsorship relationship with the government?
With the government, well, like anything, it's about finding, you know, the best person to speak with. And often that can be one of the hardest parts of the process, is trying to find that best person. And it's really, it is not brain surgery. It is really about building a relationship. Letting them know who you are, letting them know what you have to offer, letting them, you know, showing them that you understand that they are obviously, you know, looking for organisations who can provide outcomes in this area or programs in that area, and showing them that you match what they are looking for, and talking about, you know, a way forward. And being curious, I think that's another thing. It goes, whether you're seeking it with the government or companies, it's about being curious. What are you looking for? You know, that, at the end of the day, they know you want money. Okay, that's a given. Everyone knows that. But being curious about what they're after, because it's a screening process for you as well. You know, there might be bells that go off and you think, you know, I don't know that we can deliver what they're looking for. And you've been able to save yourself a lot of time if you can kind of cover that off in the first call or two. I hope that helps, Mark.
Melissa asks, so you said the best first approach was telephone. What sorts of things do you say to potential sponsors when you first contact them?
Oh, great. You know what? I am not going to answer that because I cover that extensively in a couple of those ebooks. So you want to get the, I'm just going to go back for you guys. You're going to want the 8 tips to give your sponsorship strategy an unfair advantage. So that one is a checklist where I cover 8 questions that sponsors are going to want to know the answers to. Any sponsor worth their salt is going to want to know the answers to some questions, and that book will help you work out what to say. And obviously the 8 easy steps to cold calls. I've got scripts in there. I've got bits about how to handle your nerves, you know, scripts for what happens if I go through to their voicemail, or what happens if I get to the office manager, or what happens if the actual person picks up the phone and I have to start speaking with them. So please do download those, because they can give you way more help than I can give you in 30 seconds.
Okay, I think I've got a couple of questions I can put together. How do you start to find suitable sponsors, and how do you work out what you can offer to them?
Yes. Okay. So yeah, I would really say come along to the 4-part series, because we're going to be diving in a lot more, and I'm going to be giving away templates and things like that. That's really going to help you. I'm not a fan of sitting on a webinar and being given a ton of theory and then nothing that helps me implement what's been spoken about. So I'm a big believer in, you know, wanting to talk about stuff, answer questions, but then give practical tools that you can go straight back to your desk and implement. So it's probably not an easy question to answer, but to find the right sponsors is really, it's part of that navel-gazing process. It's about understanding really deeply who you are as an organisation, who your supporters are, and what are the kind of things that bring them together. You know, for instance, I was going to, do we have many more questions? I can take those off into an email if you like. I'm just thinking that it's a little bit more involved than a quick answer.
We've got about 5 questions at the moment.
Okay, all right. Okay, do you want me to, should I keep answering that one then?
Oh, it's as you want, really. I can keep
Okay.
them, yeah.
It was 2 parts. How do you find the right sponsors and what do you have to offer? Was
Yeah,
it the question?
how do you
Yes.
figure out what you can offer them?
Yes. So as I mentioned in that very first 16-step process to best practice sponsorship, it is really important. Go through and look at all of the ways you're currently communicating with your supporter base. You know, do you have newsletters? Do you have emails? Are you on social media? Do you have an active social media community? Do you do face-to-face events? You know, what else do you do and how do you connect and communicate with your community of supporters? That is probably the first step, I would say, in working out what you have to offer a sponsor. Because you've already budgeted for those things. You know, that's not going to cost you any extra information any extra money, I mean, to be able to allow a sponsor to have leverage. And once you've done your research into the kind of sponsors that you want and ones that have a good alignment, remember it's about that win-win-win. So when you make sure that your community of followers are winning, you should be able to have your sponsor actually create editorial content for your newsletter, for your e-bulletins, all of that kind of stuff, because they should have something that your community of followers want to hear. The second way I would say to work out what to offer a sponsor is be curious about what sponsors want. Some of them will be extremely creative and you'll think, wow, we can actually do that, or we already do that. We just hadn't thought about it in that way. So, you know, it's really important to work out, you know, all the ways you're currently promoting your organisation and communicating, and then, of course, be curious about what sponsors are looking for. I hope that helps in a 5 seconds or less kind of way.
Okay, another question from Angelique, who you said that the sponsors may be interested in having a database information from organizations, but is it legal to give the contact details of members or volunteers?
Absolutely not, and I apologise that if I communicated poorly. So I mentioned that that in context of why boards get really resistant to undertaking a sponsorship strategy, because they think that sponsors just want your database. Please never ever hand over your database. Because, and I wish you were all in front of me now because I just want to draw on a whiteboard, but you are a gatekeeper to a community of followers and they are with you because they trust you. The minute you give away your database, you just take away the entire reason that a sponsor needs you. They can just go all the way around you, circumnavigate you and start targeting your community of followers directly. So when you are offering a sponsor leverage and the ability to connect with your community of followers, they do it through you. You have full editing rights of every article, every advertisement, every piece of marketing material that goes out to your supporters. So yes, do not give it away because your supporters have not signed up to their database. They've signed up to your database.
Thank you. Michael asks if you could go through again the 15-month lead time. Did you mean that you have to contact the sponsors and wait for them to respond within 15 months, or you have to get them 15 months in advance?
Yeah, okay, I would say start approaching sponsors 15 months in advance of when your event or when your go live date, you know, for when you want your sponsorship to start, give sponsors about 15 months because remember, if you you know, if you're going to be approaching companies, you'll find that 50% of them will say, oh, we've just organised our marketing budget, what a bummer, come back to us in 9 months' time or 6 months' time. So you need to make sure that you are allowing yourself time to not only have the 50% of those people say that to you, but you're also wanting to give them enough lead time. They've got their own internal processes. They'll have to take it to the management committee or take it to their marketing you know, department or take it to their CEO. They'll have to build it into their communication strategy. You know, they've got their own internal processes. So you want to be able to give them time so they can build their own communication strategy around a sponsorship, because the more a sponsor is singing you from the rooftops and saying to their customers, oh, we're sponsors of XYZ charity and we're so thrilled to be partnered with them, that's great, because that is exposure for you that you wouldn't normally have. So yeah, 15-month lead time.
Okay, we'll finish with a couple of questions about you, Abby, or about your business. First is from Jackie. Do you conduct face-to-face training?
Oh, yes, I do. I absolutely do. Yes, I used to run, you know, a series of webinars, workshops, and just kind of advertise, but now I tend to just do them on an as-needs basis. So I do more webinars like this, and I've created a lot more online training. But yep, I absolutely do face-to-face workshops and present at conferences and all of that kind of stuff. So.
Okay, and another from Melissa. If for a very cash-strapped organization, of all the services you offer, which one would you suggest to start with?
Oh, that is kind of how long's a piece of string, because I don't really know your organisation. So it would be better for us to probably have a conversation to get an idea of, you know, are you already doing sponsorship? Do you have somebody in your organisation to do it, or are you looking for someone to do it for you? Are you just looking for somebody to coach and hold your hand, or are you looking for a bunch of templates? So I'm very happy to have a conversation over the email about that one, because there's heaps that I can do.
Okay, would you like to say anything before I wrap things up, Abby?
I always want to say something. You know me, Olivia, I can't stop talking. I actually really just want to thank everybody for coming along and for taking time out of your busy day. I know that stuff piles up when you're, you know, you're doing training to try and further yourself, but I really hope that if you've been able to get stuck into some of these free resources, that it's going to make you feel more supported. That is my ultimate wish for you, to feel more supported in your role, because it can be hard, it can be lonely, and so, you know, I've just really appreciated so many people taking time to come and to listen to me gab on.
Well, thank you very much for presenting, Abby. Thank you everyone for joining us for this webinar. I hope you have learned a lot from it. As mentioned earlier, if you want to learn even more about best practice sponsorship, check out the course Abby will be presenting in June with us. We will send you a link to that course with the recording of today's webinar and a copy of the slides shortly. If you have any questions that come to your mind later on, or if your question has not been answered during this session, please feel free to send them through to events@connectingup.org, and I'll forward them to Abby, or you can contact Abby directly using the email address shown on the screen. And that is the end of this webinar. Thanks again for joining, and please enjoy the rest of your day.